And to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up. And welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino. I am editor of This Week in Worcester. This is Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is a valued and featured contributor to This Week in Worcester. He is president of Hollywood Film Group. He is executive producer of Managing Media. Hello, Mr. John. And he is a grumpy old man.
You like that? You like that?
Yeah. I believe it's grumpy old fan, by the way. You're a grumpy old fan.
It's grumpy old fan. That is true. That is. I also, I'm not a real journalist. I've been informed that I am not a real journalist. So.
Oh, I'm apparently. Well, I don't know if it's me because it wasn't said, but it sort of seems to be aimed at me that I'm anti-city.
Right, because if you're anti the government of the city,
issues with the government that doesn't function in any way.
You're not allowed to. What it's supposed to. Don't you question the government, Tom Marino?
No. And especially as a journalist, how dare you be skeptical of what comes out of
absolutely? I mean,
out of the government. How dare you?
We should just be a
cheerleader.
We should just lick all boots. Is my
right?
Right. We should at all times. So I've not now that I know that I promise that I will be more as bootlicky as possible.
Yeah, because we are here to just maintain the echo chamber that as City Hall mandates.
Right, because that's not anything like the people that they're critical of at the national level, right? Those guys don't ever do that.
No.
They never. They're very open. Easy to talk to, you know what I mean? You can say whatever you need, whatever you feel like saying. So
Mayor Frederick Nathan checking in. I don't know if you saw it. I asked that person too, like, who's those people? Like, who are you talking about? Say what you mean.
Yeah.
And didn't get a response. So
well, they didn't respond because they're scary. But anyways,
I'm apparently a very scary individual. So
let's prove a little bit right off the top with something completely out of left field how wonderful journalists we actually are. So I decided because I'm an alien. Because I'm an alien. Seriously, what is wrong with me, Tom? I decided to read for some reason the Massachusetts State Democratic Party platform that they put out for 2025.
Yeah, so I started reading it, and I was a few pages in. I just skimmed like the intro because who cares, and then I started reading, getting into the crux of it and reading it, and I don't know, I read a few pages, and I was just like, oh wait, this entirely doesn't matter, because the things they say and the things that they do, they say a lot of things and then they do things that don't align with the things that they said.
So my issue is right off the bat, right? It's 21 pages long. So it's just tone deaf. It doesn't I don't know. I mean, you and I, as we've been going through, I do agree that, you want people when they run for a position, and you put out a nice piece about a week and a half ago about the people running for city council and who had websites and who had platforms that
some position and some piece of a solution.
Go look at. right? And then you could engage with them. And so there's a lot that don't, and we've talked a lot on the show over the past couple of years about how very, very infrequently, right, do ordinances now get actually written by the city council and then passed by the city council. It's very rare that that happens. And in fact, one of our critiques of city government now is that the city manager has usurped the authority of actually writing the ordinances, which is, I think it's against the charter. And you do as well. And we have different, we have multiple reasons why, but the city council as a body is not doing anything really to push back on that, including Mayor Petty. So Mayor Petty, who's been mayor for 14 years now, going for his 8th term, the power of the chairmanship of the city council, which is what the mayoral position allows you to, it does have power to put ordinances, kind of right onto the agenda and have them then debated.
Well, any councilor does, really.
Yeah, any councilor can do that. And so, but under his term, it's happened less and less and less. And in this last term, there was only one that we could find, right? And I'm not even sure if it was in the last term. At least that got to the point where it came all the way through the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we when you read the Dems thing, right, you would think that they would, as a kind of state level organization, that they would take a general approach versus a specific policy approach. It's like, all right, we believe in this, and we believe in that, and we believe in this. And then if you were to then, go onto a website or a platform and ask them to break that down, that's, where you would get it. But this is the document they send out to, like, candidates for different office, and they're supposed to sign on or not to this, right? That's kind of like how, if you're part of the Mass state Democrats, you're supposed to sign on to this. So
how it should work is that, like, the party platform document should kind of, state out positions and beliefs, and then candidates within the party should be out campaigning on, means to either solve the problems identified in the platform and what what they're trying to achieve, and then the specifics on how to get to the goals stated by the party should be laid out by candidates. But of course, that doesn't happen.
Right, and it not only does not happen, but this document, reading through it, the preamble in particular, is focused on one person. It's focused on Mr. Donald J. Trump, right? And the problem with that is, in my opinion, I'm not saying that you can't have a statement about a president you don't like or a party position you don't like. That's fine. But if you're trying to galvanize like a group of people, I feel like you're beating a dead horse. It's like, okay, wake up in the morning, right? Click on the news, see what happened yesterday, right? Something new has happened. Over the weekend, it turns out that President Trump is an FBI informant against Jeffrey Epstein. Wild stuff going on there. I just don't know that I want to. I don't know that I really do want to engage with that all the way. Now, the reason I brought it up, Tom, is because at the city council level this year, one of the developing approaches to this campaign is that there's a couple of candidates, four in particular, that have really been public about it, that have said that we will focus on local stuff. We're going to focus on potholes and stuff. And so that's, Joe Petty, Kate Toomey, Candy Merrill Carlson, and Mo Burke, right? That's what they're saying they're going to focus on. Incumbent candidates, right? And then you have, and they're positioning themselves, and they're saying as if the rest of the candidates are not focused on those things at all. And we're going to talk tonight about an item on the agenda that I think opens the question, Tom, about whether or not people are actually being told what's happening. And I'm trying to do this as fairly as I can, right? And really point out, what are we doing here? What are we doing there? And if you look at this document, right, you and I are pigeonholed a lot of times, and everybody puts us like squarely in this one particular area. And more, I want people to see that I am not just critical of someone who might be considered to be conservative. I am going to be critical of anybody who I believe is being dishonest, and that dishonesty is like really provable, not just like I think they're lying, but I know they're lying, right? So that's one. And then someone who I feel like is trying to distract from what might be a major important issue in the local area. So I'm just focused on the local, and and part of the local is dealing with how these operations go, right? So, anyways, the state Dems support three of those four candidates openly, right? So, Kate, Candy, and Joe all have some level of endorsement from the MassDems and then the Democratic City Committee, which is a subchapter of that. And so I think a really good question as a reporter to ask those three candidates, at least. I'm not saying you could apply it to every candidate, but if you were to apply it to those three candidates, would be: do they adhere to all the things that are in this 21-page document? Is X this, is X that, housing this, housing that? There's one interesting thing in there, Tom, where they start to question the definition of the term affordable for affordable housing, which of course is something that is an ongoing thing. What is actually affordable housing? I would say, just so you all know out there, I'll take a hot take stance right now. Affordable housing means you have the money to pay for it. And
Well,
when you do pay
should
for it,
be it should
still
be,
pay
you
for
know,
food.
yeah,
That's a key
right.
component.
A
So
third of ones, and you're living in affordable is a kind of a difficult term to nail down in a political context. Essentially, though, it is someone who is living in housing where they pay not more than a third of their monthly income as rent is generally considered affordable.
right. Exactly. That's and so I think if you go into this thing and you look at these items, the first thing they start off with economics, and then education, housing. I'm 12 pages in healthcare, lot of stuff on healthcare, environment, blah 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 blah. The thing that what I get from this document is it's just tone deaf. It's tone deaf from regular people's lives, and I think that that's what you're starting to see in pockets here and there. Now, unlike others, I'm not going to make these proclamations that like there's like revolutions taking place, right? That all of a sudden is going to be what are the every 4 years there's a blue wave, there's a red wave, there's a red tide, there's a blue tsunami. There's always this thing that like when like a small thing moves, then that means a mandate has been issued by the public and all that. And realistically, even though President Trump carried both houses of Congress this past election, it wasn't a massive mandate. It wasn't the biggest number of all time. He didn't even win a majority of the total voting, electorate. Right? It was 49.85 or
Mm-hmm.
something. Where he finished at. He won, but he didn't win the majority, and so of popular votes, and so you have to look at that and say that everything that we see at the national level and even at the state level is often like a game of inches, and it's really not these huge issues. And the issues that they are focused on, there are not these big spreads. Like there's not like an issue that there's like 80-20 or 90-20, except for, it seems, housing. And so this will kind of circle back into our topics tonight. We talked a little bit about the survey that the chamber did in their newspaper, and in that survey, Worcester residents, 80% of them said housing affordability is a major concern. So you can take that kind of whole document and like really go down to one thing. What's the thing that's on people's minds the most? And it's really their ability to either pay rent or buy a house, and live in that house, and be happy and secure. And so I think, and then of course that goes down to the unhoused issue and how we're dealing with that, and how do you help people that are struggling, and all those things are interconnected within that one giant framework. But when it comes down to it, people are worried about where they're going to live and if they can afford it. and I think that I've yet to see really anybody make that the primary focus of their campaign, or be like a solo issue campaigner. And so that was just my thought about the MassDems thing. And what I see to be, I don't think it'll change anything, because in Massachusetts, the Democrats are going to win 80% of both houses, and probably the governor. Every once in a while we throw a Republican in there, but it really hasn't been different at the state level for since 1959.
And just in response to Dana, respectfully, Massachusetts estimated population in Massachusetts by the Census Bureau is the highest it's ever been this year. It's only gone down, using the decade, every decade, it's only gone down one decade. It only went down between 2020 and 2022, but it has gone back up since. So just FYI, we never did have, we have 7.1 million. We never had 8, and that's the highest number it's ever been recorded, at least. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm unenrolled not because I want to choose a ballot, right? Although that's a reasonable reason to be unenrolled. I'm unenrolled because I would never, be, I can't imagine a scenario where the Democrats are a party worthy of being a member of, in my view. It is the other corporate party, is what I call it, because they're both corporate parties. I mean, again, we went through this before a few weeks ago. The neoliberalism has infected, both major parties. It is basically the cause of everything terrible that's happened in the last 40 years, 50 years, 40 years.
Yeah, a great example. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a case in New Hampshire. I think it was Lebanon, but I'm not 100% sure. DEA did a big raid like maybe 10 days ago, and Franklin, New Hampshire. It was in Franklin, New Hampshire, and there was 20. They arrested 27 people, right? And I only noticed because, again, like me and you, I follow weird stuff, and I check courthouse records, and I look at all these things. Now, it actually was part of a bigger operation where they arrested like 75 people all over New England. A huge amount of fentanyl and pills and all kinds of stuff was got in this raid. I noticed something. I noticed there was no pictures. Because normally whenever there's a raid, right, of something, and in Auburn, I think in Auburn, maybe 2 weeks ago, there was 2 women who went on a shoplifting spree, and then ended up going to Wendy's and got caught. Yeah, Wendy's or something like that. And of course, their pictures were immediately up on social media in a second. And then the Auburn Police Department, which whoever runs their social media at Auburn, by the way, much better job than our local social media person, whoever's doing it for the police department. They're funny. They went on this thing. They made a poem about them. When you shoplift, you shouldn't stop for fries or something like that. So there was a little bit of fun involved in that. Also, sadness because the mothers. There was 2 moms that were stealing clothes, and so it's sad too. It's not like it's always just funny. But I do notice when like those cases are immediately thrown up there, and you see pictures thrown up there. And whenever the feds get somebody recently, they're throwing video on social media and pictures and how dangerous the person is.
Photoshop tattoos.
Photoshop and tattoos. Gotta get it up there. But you arrest 75 people in a massive drug sting all around New England, and it's dead silence. And the reason I knew it was weird, Tom, was because no one, not a Democrat or a Republican, said a word. Right? So what I think about that, right? I immediately am concerned. So I went and I went on the. If you go to the DEA's thing, there's actually a place you can request records. It's a pretty easy, simple form to use, and I got back an answer already, and it's actually on their press release for this, and they said names and locations will not be released at this time. What?
So typically, names aren't released until arraignment.
Until the arraignments, right?
Right.
But it was just I find those things interesting when, a lot of times the way that agencies and organizations approach things, usually when you have like a win, you're like right out there, and so I look at these different officials, whether Democrats or Republicans or unenrolled or independent or whatever you call yourself, and I wonder to myself, when some of these bigger things come down the road, why they're not out there, right? Related to affordable housing is an article that you wrote, and I did a little bit of research to help you, which was on the RealPage software. There was recently a settlement with one of the developers here in Worcester, which is Greystar, which is one of the bigger ones.
The biggest property management company on earth.
Yeah. So they gave a settlement, right? And the thing I noticed about this, and you didn't hear a word about it from any of our local politicians. And one of the things I noticed about that settlement is they didn't have to reduce the rents back down to the rates they would have been before that software was inflating them. So
I don't know that that's a thing that you can determine, though.
Well, so to me, I would go back to the date you started using the software.
That could have been 10 years ago.
True. It could have been 10 years ago. That is very true. I'm not saying that it isn't. But what I am saying is that it's an artificial market. If that's an admission of guilt by Greystar, the biggest property management company in the world, that rent was in fact inflated. And if it was inflated, that means all of this time that we've been sitting here listening to affordable and X amount of the incomes and yada yada, 60% and of the medians and 80% of the medians, all those numbers that they were based on were complete nonsense because they were being inflated, at least by the biggest company in the world who admitted it. Now, to me, what I see Greystar doing is, if Greystar is saying yes, and we're going to settle this, then all the other companies are going to do the same thing, right? Because they're not going to, it's almost like the big company puts you in a position where you have to, if you're the other companies, I assume. I mean, and maybe that's a big assumption to make. Maybe I shouldn't.
No, I mean, so if other companies using that software think that they have a case that they can win, they wouldn't settle. And of course, just to be accurate about what it is Greystar did, of course they settled, and in that settlement it is stated that they accept no fault. Just to be clear.
Right. Which, by the way, I don't care. I still fault them.
Well, yeah, because you're a human being with a brain, right?
If Greystar wants to come sue me, come and get my $20. You can have it. I don't care. I'm still going to say that you cheated and you got caught cheating. And thank goodness there's at least some honest people out there in the universe that are paying attention to you cheating, because you did. You were cheating.
And if you don't get the RealPage thing, so RealPage is a piece of software that the real estate companies use, basically property management firms mostly, and what the software does is it's taking all the clients, all the people that use the software, and it's grabbing all their data with permission from the companies, and then spitting back, based on all that market data, spitting back what they should be charging for their units, for each individual unit.
Right.
And even reportedly has recommended that some people some companies leave units open because it's actually more profitable for them.
Right.
So kind of a manufactured what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah.
Manufactured scarcity, right?
Yeah, or manufactured demand because there's less supply, right? And so that's generally in the past, and that's what's different about this case is, this is an algorithm they're using and spitting data back to the companies, but the companies have agreed to share their data, right? That allow, by using the software in the agreement, they agree for a RealPage to be able to process their data. And if those companies got together individually, right, the real estate companies, and shared data amongst them, that's very clearly antitrust stuff, right? You're sharing proprietary data. And so the government's argument, the federal government's argument is, you've agreed to share the data with the company, and the company is spitting you back data, spitting you back information based on yours and other people's data. You're still sharing the data amongst yourself. You're just using an intermediary, and that's no different. That's the very rough, quick overview of it, because I'm not sure that, people that aren't nerds maybe don't quite get it. So hopefully that was
right. Well, so I mean, I think there's an easy example too in our downtown. So right now we have these 3 buildings and a fourth one about to come online, all in the Kelly Square, Green, the Canal District, right? So all there's 4 buildings all there, and then of course the one up by the the um the post office too. So, but basically, there's 3, and there's a fourth one about to come online. In all 3 of those buildings, the city manager, who was the assistant city manager at the time, and the former city manager, and then Mayor Petty, all said that those buildings would be at 95% capacity within a year of coming online. That's not true, right? So now all of a sudden those numbers have changed, and you hear them talking about 75% and 80%. But it's hard to look at the real page case, which one of the elements was intentionally leaving units empty, and look at those buildings, which with units that are empty that were supposed to be, according to our leadership here, 90% plus rented out, and they're not yet rented out. So what is the problem? Is there an issue there? Were they involved in it? Now those folks, those developers haven't signed on to this settlement yet. And so we don't know. But the question is that since you and I are not real journalists, Tom, how come none of the other local media have asked this specific question? Why is no one holding them accountable for this? Because the mayor, Mayor Petty's been on every other station, including Manny J Media, talking about up talking those buildings, and as part of it's a central focus of his campaign is that he's brought on all these units, and he uses the term affordable in his campaign materials, and then the city manager Batista, and then current Secretary for Housing and Urban Development. Am I getting that right for Mr.
Yes.
Augustus, our last
Yes.
city manager? He touted it as well, and then one of our city managers, just to throw them all under the bus, Mike O'Brien, is actually an executive with one of the real estate developers that was accused in this thing. Although I think you updated me that they weren't in the attorney general's lawsuits, right? They were
I don't think they're in the federal government has sued some companies, but they did. The federal government wrote, I forget what the type of brief it's called, but it was they basically filed something with a court in a class action lawsuit that does include oh God, what's the name of the company? They have a bunch of I can't think of it at the moment, but the company that Michael Bryan works for is named in a class action lawsuit amongst, I think, that was brought in Massachusetts, but then was consolidated with some other cases. I think it's being heard in Maryland, if I remember correctly.
Maryland. Because they're all Delaware corporations, right? I think that's in your article. They're all Delaware. So I think that's an important thing. But so the thing is that part of we're weaving a narrative here, but part of the reason we're doing this is that, again, one of the campaign focuses that we've talked about, that you've heard from a lot of folks, is that, hey, we're going to bring it back to the local issues. We're going to focus on local issues. Okay, that's awesome. Let's talk about the fact that we have developers who are cheating on the rent prices that you said were the right rent prices and that were affordable. What do you have to say about that, Mr. Mayor Petty, City Manager Batista? That is my pushback against the folks who like to say that we're not journalists, and that's because I don't see them asking those questions. In the meantime, they'll throw an article out there about the festivals owing $2,500, and so I look at priorities, and priorities to me should be the thing that affects the most people. I get it that there are some things that are so dangerous that someone could be harmed and hurt. So you need to really go at those things right away. Like obviously racism is more important than rent, but at the same time you should be dealing with those things in parallel, right? So you should still. It doesn't, just because you're fixing racism doesn't mean you can't fix rent pricing, right? You can do both. The idea that you can't do both is why we're here where we are, because people are frustrated because the same things have been going on for for decades and centuries, and in some folks their entire lives, right? They've been dealing with the same things, and they want to know when exactly those things are going to be resolved. And the only way you get them resolved, I think, is by working in parallel. But you need a full team, Tom, right? You can't have a single politician that just handles all of that. And so when you ask the question is never really answered directly. And so, I think that that's maybe something that the voters should consider, is that when you're asking the question, hey, what are you going to do about housing? And they said, well, we're going to work on getting you more affordable units. Okay. There's a follow-up question. And the follow-up question is, what are you going to do about the companies that cheated us, that you helped get properties into the city? What kind of answer is there going to be? Is there going to be corporate responsibility? Are they going to have to say anything, right? Is there going to be a statement of any kind, an admission of any kind? I noticed with the Madison properties issue in Worcester Business Journal, one of the representatives from Madison Properties said that after they had a meeting, that they feel like the dialogue between them and the city is much more positive now than it was at the I think it was the real estate trust meeting, maybe. I forget which one. Rob Antonelli lit them up.
The Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Yeah.
The Housing Trust Fund. So Rob Antonelli went at him, and they've shifted the blame really back on the city manager's office, right? So the dialogue with the city is now much more positive. But Madison Property still has an answer to the fact that they bailed on that property behind Polo Park. They still have an answer.
Well, and they were allowed to, because there was, the city didn't protect itself.
Right. And so there's now you and I, Tom, can sit here on our podcast right here, and we can ask all these questions all day long. And maybe the 1,000 or I think 1,500 people that watch our show on a regular basis can hear us. And maybe there's some city councils that watch and some local officials that watch. But until the whole electorate really holds them accountable for those kind of things and considers those things to be important, because that's really where we get to. So that's my overall thought. I know we're going to talk about some more specific stuff, but those are those things that I think about. It's like, why don't we ask these questions? Why is this the priority right now? It just doesn't make any sense. And I get it. Sometimes, things are untimely, right? Because, maybe there was a focus on one thing and then something comes to the fore. I think that happened with the DOJ report. There were some things that the city council was discussing, and then the DOJ report was released, and they were surprised, and they were not prepared for it. And of course, then it took over the narrative for a long period of time, and it still hasn't been resolved to this day. A lot of the blame for the resolution is because of the way that they handled it. And so now, that's something that, but I will at least say that they didn't know that was coming. Right. At least they didn't know it was coming that week when it got dropped. Right. So I think that having those conversations with the actual counselors, I'd like to see as these events come up, which there's going to be some debates. I think Mechanics Hall is having a different set of series that's starting next week. I know that Cafe Neo is hosting the District 4 one. I'll be there with Ted, and in fact, what I'm going to do on that one, I'm going to go to it. It starts at 6 till 7:30 on a Sunday. So I'm going to go to it. I'm going to try to get clips from it and then get the clips to you for our show. I'm going to try. Really hard.
That's going to be a lot.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. It's going to be a lot, though.
But maybe if I use CapCut, I can get you some stuff.
And I just wanted to, since we kind of went down that road of, real estate, the annual or biannual, report came out on TIFs, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them are good news. Like for example, what's a good one? So Armory Street Cold Storage / Table Talk Pies, 58 Gardner Street, right?
Yeah.
It's a 20-year TIF. It started in 2021. It's 60% off, and if you don't know how TIFs works, it is a discount on the increase in property taxes because the value of the property's gone up because the owners invested in it, right? So they're putting money into the property. If the value of the property is rising, therefore their taxes are rising, and then the TIF is a discount on the increase, right? So this was a 60% TIF. They're supposed to last 16 years. It was projected to, according to the report from Peter Dunn in Economic Development at the city, it was projected to have this project was going to retain 150 jobs and add another 30 more, all full time. And it's actually outpaced that. It created 50 new jobs, and so instead of 180, there's 200 jobs. 121 of them by Worcester residents, which is fantastic. And it was at the start when they started this agreement just a few years ago, 2021. The total project investment was anticipated to be a little over 22 million. It's been almost 40.
Yeah, they've had some issues with that property.
Yeah. It is behind on the taxes generated, but I mean, I'll take that when you have 120 Worcester residents working there, right? But you compare that.
They haven't finished it yet. That's why it's behind.
Right. And there's others that are more into operational that have generated more taxes than was anticipated when the agreement was signed. However, this is one property, and this is kind of akin to the outfield building there that isn't getting built for next to Polo Park. It is no, I'm too stupid to 102 Randolph Street.
Right.
The Oasis at Dodge Park. So that is it's open. It opened in 2017. It's a assisted care, memory care assisted living facility is how they describe it. It's actually created more jobs than they anticipated, but it is, over $300,000 under the taxes generated. 69 Worcester residents work there. That's fantastic. However, the notes on this are, Phase 2 is on hold. Development is currently halted due to COVID, staff shortages, RN and CNA shortages, high interest, inflation, and cost of goods. Why are we giving these people money? Or why are we giving them a discount when they didn't finish the project, right? And this agreement was started in 2016. It only runs to 2028, and they haven't even fulfilled their obligation. And so where's the clawback? There isn't, because
there's no mechanism for a clawback either, right?
Unbelievable.
Right. So I'm with you. So there's another project too. If you go down to near the old Eaton plant, but where they have where Peterson Oil is, there's a big giant the old Eaton building is being torn down, right? I forget who bought it, but the demo project has been on hold for at least since COVID, because it was going to be done, and then during COVID they stopped it. They still have the big banners up there from the demo. I don't know what the timing is, but if you go look at the because it's under demolition, and I mean it should be, that building is a death trap. I don't think that they're paying any taxes at all because it's condemned, and so they get an extension, or those years don't count against their thing. And I think that those are things that we don't know about when the thing is projected. It's like, okay, this agreement X is going to last 20 years, but how many of the years are affected by construction? How many of the years are affected by inspections? How many of the years are affected by X? Like you just said about the Oasis, the project didn't even get finished, right? So they're not generating the same amount of money that we talked about. And there's all of these things happening over the city all at the same time. Now, let me say this. Let me give Peter Dunn a lot of credit. I think Peter, when he's allowed to, answers the questions that we're talking about. And so I will give Peter Dunn that assessment. Whenever I've asked him a question, and it's fun to ask people questions at City Hall, because other people look at me asking them questions. I feel like people are always under lock and key, because if I ask a question, people feel like they're in trouble. But let me give credit where credit is due. Peter does answer things honestly and directly. Sometimes by policy, he's not allowed to answer things, and I get that. But he also has given some really extensive quotes to the Telegram and Gazette and the Worcester Business Journal about different projects, and you can kind of go in. The thing that I would bring out of this altogether was his answers about the ADU law, both the one that the City Council originally passed, and then the state's new one overtook it. So now they had to go back in and then accept the state's. Just the state's was more robust than the one the
Right.
city council had originally passed. But that was unanticipated. I don't want to blame the city council for that. That was no one knew the state was going to do it then, right? It just came, and then it is what it is. So
no, but what the state did policy wise, nobody knew it was going to come that quick. But what the state did policy wise was very much expected.
The
city's approach was very reserved.
Yeah, that the city could have done it in advance. But Peter Dunn, when answered those questions in a bunch of interview formats, including an event that I actually recorded for the Profit Finder, an ADU event, which was at the Hilton Garden Inn a couple of years ago. Manny and I and Leanne covered that event, and he answered in extensively about how the city viewed ADUs as supplementing, the housing stock, right? So they were targeting specific properties and hoping that people would apply for, loan offsets and all this other kind of stuff, because they felt like the density of those neighborhoods could grow, right? So they, that's why, those are the kind of things. So anyways, I just thought he answered those questions very well. I don't know that the developers in any of these situations have been really forthcoming. And that's why we have this weird kind of, is it possible that they were doing the same stuff as what we've seen in these lawsuits? Even if they don't admit fault, but if they sign on to some settlement, how do we know it didn't make everybody's rents go up? And here's the part that's really hard to determine. And I don't know that there's a mechanism that any of us could create to figure it out. But if I'm like a regular triple decker guy, right? And I own a triple decker, but I don't. If I did, though, if I owned a triple decker that was like somewhat near the canal district, right? And my rent before those buildings came online for a 2-bedroom was $1,000, let's just say. And then I saw that they were selling 2 bedrooms for $1,700. I could increase my rent to $1,200, be competitive in the market, right? And no one will really notice that, except for the renters, right? The renters are going to feel that, but no one will really notice it because it doesn't look as bad compared to the $1,750 for a studio. No one sees that, and I think that those kind of things really fall between the cracks when you see people talking about platforms and how they're going to approach the campaign season this year. So when you hear the term affordable, there's a lot more to it than just whether or not you can pay for
it. Yeah. Just to respond to a couple things, Dana, it's a TIF, tax increment financing is what it's called, and again, it's cut on because there's investment going in the property tax is going up, so it's a rate cut or a percentage cut on the increase in the taxes. They're still paying the taxes from the when they acquired the property, they're still paying that amount and plus a percentage of the increase. And Shawnee, the incorporation in Delaware isn't a tax thing, I don't believe, because companies pay taxes in the states where they make the money. But Delaware's like all their regulations are very low. They have it's stupid stuff like requirements for annual meetings for a corporation are much more lax. The filing fees are all nothing. Here it's $500. I think there it's like $20 or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a tax issue.
The key is it is in oh my goodness, what's the capital of Delaware?
Wow.
Your camera went out of focus.
Oh, it did. I don't know why it does that. I'm ugly. It doesn't like me.
But they have a special court just for those corporations, and in that special, which actually that made the news earlier this year because Elon Musk got mad because they did something and he reincorporated Tesla in Texas or something like that. But yeah, all the credit, Visa, MasterCard, all the like American Express, they're all incorporated. A lot of the banks have incorporated our Delaware.
I mean, I worked at a company years ago now, but it was a tech startup, and they incorporated into it's just like what you do. as you would go, if you were getting to the point where you have to form a C corp, you which is you pay corporate tax, you incorporate in Delaware because it's just that's where everybody does it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, that was somehow we went from the MassDems to housing, but yeah, I have no use for the MassDems. On Tuesday, City Council is back after another break of a few weeks, and the battle over sprinklers will come to the floor.
It will.
This is getting weird. This topic,
Yeah.
The City Council. I don't know who. I think it was Councilor Toomey that asked for a report on economic impact of adopting this.
Yeah.
It's an opt into a state law. So it's a state law that you can opt into, and it requires new buildings with 4 or more units to have sprinklers, and it requires buildings that go through substantial redevelopment or refurbishing to the point. And there was a Supreme Court case, a state Supreme Court case on this, and the state Supreme Court defined it as making a property as good as new. That you are also required to add sprinklers. Again, buildings with 4 or more units. Now, we already have other ordinances or other regulations that require sprinklers in new buildings with 4 or more units. We already have.
That's
that.
Right.
Old buildings, I don't believe, as far as I know, at least, there's nothing there for older buildings. And what the state law does is it basically approaches this as you either have the money because you're doing a full refurb, or you've accessed financing, and so you have access to capital, right?
Right.
If you're redoing a whole property, that's going to cost, when you bury in $10,000 or $15,000 inside a big chunk of money to redo a whole property with a bunch of units, with 4 or more units, it's certainly a burden, but if you're spending $100,000 and you're going to go get an extra 10, that's different than you were going to spend 5 and you're going to go get an extra 10, right? Right. It's a whole different, we're talking about a different scale. And Councilor Toomey's taking the position that adopting this law will do nothing, and that's based on a memo written by the fire chief, who said in it will not affect existing structures. But I'm not sure if I'm not sure where the disconnect here is, because I think it will if they are refurbishing them,
right,
and making them quote good as new.
Here's where I think it really might what might open the door, and this is something that there are several developers, without not major developers, but several landlords, I guess, that own multiple properties in the city of Worcester. Okay, let's put it that way. With the new ADU thing, there are several triple deckers, so not buildings that have 4 units now, right? They're triple deckers that if they were to refurbish those buildings and add a basement apartment to get a 4th unit, or an ADU to get a 4th unit, it's an open question about whether this law would apply. In the case that the Supreme Court case that you brought up, I believe it was a refurbished triple decker that added a fully finished basement apartment. So it went from a 3-unit building to a 4-unit building. And in the process of the building, the city, whichever city it was, sued and forced them to put the sprinklers in under this 261. And the state Supreme Court said, yep, you have to do it because you added a unit that makes the building like new. And here, if you go into the real detailed notes with the justice who wrote the report, changing a building from a 3-unit building to a 4-unit building makes it like new. That was the term, like new, because it used to be an old 3-unit, and now it is a new 4-unit building. Okay, so our city is full of triple deckers. It's
right.
Full of them,
and with ADU, right? So that's
right.
that's a yeah.
So there's where the line is. Now, installing sprinklers in today's world is expensive. It does cost a ton of money. However, our city has a history, and literally a recent history, of buildings without sprinklers burning down, including on Pleasant Street, the little shop thing in District 5, which led to this whole conversation. So Councilor Attell, one of her constituents, in fact, actually, 3 business owners who did not vote for her very publicly, their business burned down. And she actively sought out how to figure out what went wrong with this building because there were no sprinklers in that system, or they were the new one. They were the temp sprinklers, but they weren't embedded in the walls the way that they're supposed to, right? In the ceilings and all that other stuff. And so that led to her doing a bunch of study and meeting with the fire department and the fire chief, very public, very open process that was consistently spoken about for the entirety of this legislative session, this council session. So this has been a 2-year process by the council. And so the chief I thought, when this first happened, this is a win, right? It's going to happen because the chief is on board, the city manager is on board, the fire unions are on board, everybody universally that's a firefighter that I've met wants more sprinklers because it makes it safer. It just is, right? Because who's the person who has to go into the fire that has no sprinkler, Tom? The firefighters, right? So you would think that would be something that would help. It also would help potentially stop irreversible damage to some of these properties, which, by the way, some of these older buildings, there's questions about insurance paying for those older buildings, right? Because they're so old. I mean, we have a ton of stock that are over 100 years old in our city, and it is a lot to ask an insurance company to pay for that. It truly is. If you don't do the work to put sprinklers in, you're asking an insurance company basically to take a full risk, like the full value risk of that building, which could be, what's the average price of a building that's a triple decker in Worcester? $500,000 now, because property values are so high. So you can understand why this is such an important thing that most people are on it. If you go to the insurance agents group, they're for this. They want this in every single building, right? So there's the Chamber of Commerce has come out for it in the past. It's just really strange that out of nowhere the public safety chair doesn't want this item, and so by order of the chairperson, they suspended the rules and I forget how that
So
works.
they're going to ask to suspend the rules, which requires a vote. Yeah.
So it'll become the first item they take up, right? Is that how it works? In the
I
end?
don't know.
So, or it'll be a primary item, and so the chair and Councilor Toomey in a series of online posts, which were wild to say the least,
They were weird.
went on the attack against Councilor Hajjaj and comments on Attell's page as well. So there was like a post on the personal page, a post on the campaign page, and then a bunch of back and forth on Facebook, of all places. I wrote about it in This Week in Worcester. You can check out the City Council preview if you go to thisweekinworcester.com, right? So, but long story short, Councilor Toomey has said that that she's going to have this item filed. So, Tom, I can't help but think of the worst case scenario. What if there's a building where they add an ADU or they add a refurbished basement that they don't do the sprinklers because of this rule, because it doesn't affect the triple decker, right? It only affects the 4-unit building. And then it burns down and a firefighter dies. To me, that would be effective political suicide, right? That would be the end of your career in the city of Worcester. It would be the end for anybody. It would also be the end for any councilor who voted for that. And it would be the end for anybody associated with that. That would be the end. And the reason why I say this is because the 1999, the cold storage fire, people forget about how big this was. This is international news. Like, Bill Clinton came to Worcester to the memorial for the firefighters. Dennis Leary's entire career was stolen off of the valor of those 6 men.
Oh, that's bullshit. Stop it.
Anti-Dennis Leary in every single way. I can't stand that guy. But anyways, so for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them. But anyways, that is a still simmering issue with the city of Worcester. It's still there The kids of those guys are all firefighters now, and this has just been an ongoing thing. I'm producing a movie related to the firehouses and there's a continued interest in the life and the safety of firefighters and buildings that are subject to fire. And so it makes no sense, Tom, unless there is either a specific interest from someone outside, or it's just a very, very, very significant mistake. I'm trying to give Councilor Toomey the most room I can for it to be outside influence, because I feel like if it's just a political error born out of not liking another councilor, man, that's a big one, Tom. That's a big one.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, the majority in this council has stuck together on a lot of things, and it'll be interesting to see how everyone plays this. Because of course everybody's in political mode right now. Nobody's in practical mode. And will we see a fracture in the majority? Are they going to allow Councilor Toomey to be isolated on this issue? It would be interesting. But that will happen on Tuesday.
I mean, they have the votes to file.
Well, if they all stick together, yeah. But does everybody want to sign up for that? Is the question, for the reasons some of the reasons you just said.
I would say this. I would make an appeal to Councilor Nguyen that an issue like this, that additional vote is maybe more important than it's ever been. This is life and death. People could die. And so, it's a personal appeal for me to Councilor Nguyen, please come back and consider, or at least come on Zoom and consider voting on this very specific issue. And if anybody wants to, send that message on, I'd be grateful.
I believe every word of that appeal was a waste of breath. Some things happen at the Worcester Police Department that, I mean, they're not groundbreaking, but they're encouraging. So I will have a piece on this early part of the week. The three things happened that are pretty surprising to me. So first is, soon after, he was then interim chief, but Paul Saucier was appointed as interim chief. In 2023, the Worcester Police Department Bureau of Professional Standards, for the first time since 2015, as stunning as that is, but they found an officer responsible for the use of unreasonable force. Stunning. And then in 2024.
Wait, hold on, Tom, before you move on. Did you just give credit to them? But I thought you hate the police.
Well, that's only if you listen to certain really loud people on Facebook who don't want to talk to you, who won't talk to you face to face, but will talk a bunch of crap about you. Right.
But so when the facts reveal themselves, though, you do often point out good things, don't you?
Listen. This is the whole problem. Is this doesn't happen? It hasn't happened forever.
Right.
And then again in 2024. So this is late 2023, and then in 2024, and again I'll have a written piece with everything all laid out. I got body cam footage and the whole nine.
Where's that piece going to be found, Tom?
That would be on This Week in Worcester, if you can imagine that. And then in 2024, same thing. An officer was found responsible for the unreasonable use of force. Now, these were not, I'm sure if you're the individual involved, that this is a big deal. But in the grand scheme of things, they aren't the most egregious violations we've seen by any means. In both cases, there was a suspect that officer was trying to stop. One had a warrant. I don't recall at the moment what the cause of the other one was. It was two people walking down the street, and one had a snowblower, one had a lawnmower, pushing a lawnmower down the road. Clearly not theirs. And when they were questioned about it, one ran. But in both cases, the suspect was running, and the officer used their taser. They used the projectile, deploying the prongs
into the back.
So that is a level 4 use of force, and that level 4 consists of when the officer is, believes there's a credible threat or is in fact physically threatened, right? By personal safety, right? The suspect is aggressive toward them. At that point, that rises to level 4, and deploying the projectiles is policy. For a person not presenting a threat to the officer but is running away,
Right.
the taser can be used, but it must be used in drive stun mode, which means it has to be pressed up against them. The projectiles are not, right? That's level 3. So, the reports go into some detail, especially on one. Apparently the handbook for the taser has some information in it about when to use the device. Like, the manufacturer suggested that differs from policy, and the officer said, "Yeah, I screwed it up." The last thing I read was the manual, and so that's what I went with, and that was the wrong thing to do. Seems like based on the report that they no, I didn't do the right thing here. One was although they don't comment on this, very strange. Although they don't comment on disciplinary what the measures are for discipline. One had notes in it that said there was a 5-day suspension. And the other one, I think, was some counseling and some retraining and whatnot.
Retraining.
So I don't have a problem with any of that. I mean, they did something that was against policy, but this isn't somebody that was sitting on the street not doing anything. It was just attacked out of nowhere, like we've seen in some instances. Or was attacked for ridiculous reasons, Pastor Rizzuti. So this is all good stuff. This is what I've kind of been waiting for all the times that I said I think that the current chief can be an agent for positive change. I don't think he can or will do it alone. I don't think he desires to do it alone, nor could he if he wanted to. And that is really the crux of my criticism, is the do nothing council. But this is a piece of the pie here to getting to the right place.
I wonder, and I'm open to like a more robust conversation down the line, but I wonder if some of the things that have been written by us and have been talked about by us on the show in particular, and also you have to give credit to Bill over at Worcester Sucks, right, and then Brad at the TNG. I wonder if the level of interest that has come up has given the chief the room that he needs to be able to make these decisions. And I'm just thinking through how the police department works as an organization. I don't know that. I mean, there's much more egregious uses of force inside of the reporting that we've done years back, right?
Yes.
That did not result in findings against the officer. And in this case, these are much more recent incidents. They have been found that way. And that's really something that I want to think about. Like, does that, we're going to do that at the end, Jack. Is that, is that the only way you can give the chief of police room? You can't codify it. You have to just have a, yes, I do agree that he should have taken the position from the beginning. I agree that, but at least he's doing something. And I do agree that the better late than never position sucks when someone's already dead, right? It doesn't really matter.
But I mean, just for context here, these are 2 incidents that happened since he's been chief.
Yeah,
so there's obviously his leadership has created a change in the BOPS unit. Because look, I mean, I am firmly of the opinion that there was it's been said in some forums by Worcester police officers as if this was a positive thing, that there through the entire tenure of Chief Sergeant, there was no finding of unreasonable force. No, that's not a positive thing, because we saw it more than a few times. We saw it on video.
And
and then people, and I don't even necessarily blame. I think this is an example of why I don't necessarily blame the people that wrote the reports. It seems like, the leadership, the man at the top of the food chain here, is really important in influencing how BOPS.
It's really hard to write a report that your supervisor doesn't want you to write. And I do appreciate the call for bravery. And I think that that's something that, it needs to be said in general. I mean, obviously, Tom and I have really stuck our necks out there to the point where, I was receiving, pretty consistently some death threats from various officers and their family members, which is always fun. Always fun to get those kind of comments. But I'm not afraid. There's a difference, is that I'm not afraid. And so I just said, you know what? and Tom and I were committed to, let's do what we got to do, right? But so now we have situations where it's a positive thing, because it is good that there is discipline here. This is not to repudiate those officers, because at
No.
least in one case, they admitted that they made a mistake. That's all we want. That's like that's the whole point, is to have a robust conversation around accountability. Accountability is necessary in all walks of life. I started off this episode joking about how people are telling me all the time that I'm not a real journalist. And mostly it's other journalists who think about things in a different way than I do. And they feel, probably a little pressed because, Tom and I are getting the ratings and the clicks and the likes and the shares. And so there's a little bit of jealousy there. And so I understand that, but also it's a kind of a form of accountability too, right? So at least they're questioning me. If no one's ever questioning you, that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. And so I think it's a good thing that we're at least at the position where we can start to point to things that are comparatively different than the chief prior. That's yes. It's not perfect, but you can't deny that it's different because, again, as you just pointed out, during Chief Sergeant's tenure, not a single officer ever did anything wrong.
Right. Well, related to force, right. So yeah, I mean, from inside the police department, this is what we want. And I'm by no means saying that more than a 5-day suspension was warranted in these cases. I mean, again, you're dealing with fleeing suspect. They used their tool in a way that was inappropriate. They've been disciplined. Hopefully, they won't do that again. And
is the one
good.
The girl that I saw the video of running around?
Yes, that's one of them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, he tased her twice, including the second time she was on the ground. So yeah.
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was that one or the other one where the officer was like, I haven't written it yet, so I haven't really. It's not fully digested.
By the way,
and
the other, real fast. But those tasers, man, is no joke. You're going down.
No. Yeah, you know it.
Especially
something's wrong.
Remember the old ones? It used to happen every once in a while that if it was like a big enough person, they could kind of take it. I don't know that the new ones allow it to happen. I think that
I don't know.
If you get the prongs, you're for the most part, unless it hits your clothes and it doesn't penetrate the skin, you're going down.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose, level of adrenaline, if there's drugs involved or whatever, stimulants involved, that could, who knows.
If they're the other thing in the forest, then they could take a few.
The other thing that we learned, I'll take credit for this one. Is that the primary officer involved in the beer garden situation, which that I have railed on for years now, is no longer a city employee. The circumstances around it is not related to the beer garden stuff. We can be rest assured of that, because that was all done long ago. I have no information on what the circumstances are. He might have left.
Yeah.
But the important thing is he's no longer a Worcester police officer, and I think that is a good thing for the city.
Yeah. Sean Tibbin.
Correct. And I wish him well in the rest of his life. I do not wish the man harm. I just wish him not to be a police officer, and that wishes come true.
Yeah.
So,
it's good for him, and it's good for the city that he moves on.
Sure. And there was other people that, at least in reporting after the fact, behaved in ways that shouldn't be tolerated. But again, I don't think that the current employment situation of this person is related to that at all. I don't know what it's related to. We asked, and nobody was talking.
No one wants to tell us.
Nobody wants to tell us.
No one wants to tell us. There's definitely I would say that even our people that have given us information in the past have given
not going there.
They're like, yeah, he's gone, but I ain't telling you why. It's been pretty consistent across the board. Yeah, no, not talking about that one. Like, okay, all right. So at least we can confirm that he's no longer with oh man, Sean.
And that's a good thing. And so I'll have a much more detailed written piece on that early part of the week. Yeah. And then lastly for tonight, Councilor King has an interesting order And I'm glad you pointed it out because I kind of overlooked it when I first
Yep.
kind of, looked over the agenda.
Do you
Because
want?
it's one of the last things of relevance, on the physical agenda.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably just like, by the time I got there.
Yeah.
But it seems like Councilor King's trying to take the first step to set a minimum level of personal property for which you'd be taxed on. So there's a state law that municipalities can opt into that you could give anywhere up to $10,000 before you're taxed on personal property. This isn't real estate. I think that what we're talking about here is excise taxes on cars and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it seems like council he's asking for information, a report, and some other stuff. Information gathering on if this would be appropriate in Worcester. This is typically on anything that's like at this level that is opted into a state law type of stuff. The first step is let's get some information so we can all get on the same page on what this means, and then we can fight about it. This is the first time I've ever heard of this state law, so
Yep.
I don't know how I quite feel about it yet. I think I need the information as well. But it's an interesting proposal to start. Go ahead.
Right. So there are two. I can't. Okay. So it's really I gotta be careful here because I have information and there's other things that Tom and I are working on that are related to this, but it is an important thing. So I'm going to give you a scenario like Samuel gave to David. So I'm not going to give you names, but I'm going to give you a scenario. Okay. So the scenario goes like this. Say you owned, Tom, a piece of land in the city of Worcester. A piece of land. And let's say the land was worth $1 million. Okay, $1 million. So there's a tax bill that goes to the city on that land that's worth $1 million. Right? There's a tax bill that you get.
But I don't think this applies to property.
I'm not doing. I'm avoiding that on purpose. I'm giving you
all
just
right, all right. Yep.
All right. Yep. And so let's say you didn't pay your taxes on that piece of property for 10 years, right? The current law that the city is in means that at the 10-year mark, you can start to go after said property. Okay? It makes this opt-in makes it easier to start to go after things like that much earlier. So let's just say if you parked a bunch of money in the city of Worcester and you never pay taxes on it, right? This would make it much more likely that you would have to actually pay taxes on that money, right? If that makes sense, is that value would have to be at least assessed, and then figure out if it was subject to tax or not, right? So there's a lot of weird nuance here, but there is there's some room to be said that sometimes money sits around and gets moved around and just doesn't necessarily get taxed. And so there's that. And then there's assessed value, and it's not just applied to land, but it could be equipment, right? It could be collections, things like that. And so I think that this is an interesting step by Councilor King. If you look at the opt-in rate for this particular thing, you can see maybe differing economic levels of towns and cities around the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So generally, the urban centers use this as leverage towards something else, but it's usually coupled with something, and there's something we've talked about, and then you've seen some rumblings towards that there might be an empty property tax, like if someone leaves a piece of land undeveloped for X amount of time, and then I think someone might have mentioned in the chat, at least maybe today or in another episode, where if you leave apartments or built properties empty or vacant for a long, there's a vacancy tax. So usually this thing is attached to those things, and so it's a step in the direction towards, in my opinion, holding bigger economic folks a little bit more accountable. So I think it's a good thing. I'm looking forward to the conversation around this piece because I don't know that everybody. Okay, I'm trying to be nice. I don't know that the people who wrote this law completely understand this law. Does that make sense? what I'm saying?
So
At the state level?
yeah, I'm not. I don't know about all that. I don't know either way. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know about all that. But the way I understand it is, so for example, if state law allows a municipality exempt up to 10 grand. So say Worcester does this and chooses 5 grand. If your car's worth 15, you'll pay excess. 15 grand, you'll pay excess tax on 10. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So you the first, and if your car is worth less than 5 grand, you won't pay excise tax on it. That's the way I understand it. I could be wrong. We'll learn more on Tuesday.
The vacancy thing, Sean said it was a tell.
On the vacancy tax, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is, and it's specifically creating a minimum value of personal property subject to taxation, right? And it's, that's the right words, but it seems like minimum value. It kind of throws off. I don't know. At least with me, the first time I read it, I was like, huh?
It is hard to understand. So and I get it. I get people are gonna like, what does this mean? What is it? And what I'm hoping, Tom, is that people don't, who are like, because there are definitely counselors who are openly against Councilor King. I hope that they let this be explained, and let's talk about what this means, because there in some places this has been helpful actually to people with lower incomes.
Right.
Because if you have a car that is under the value, you get you don't have to pay the excise tax, right? So the city won't collect it, right? Is that if that's my understanding? Because excise taxes go to the municipality you have the car registered in. They don't go to the state. So if we pay. By the way, I'm all for repealing the excise tax completely. So let me start there, because it's a nonsensical regressive additional tax, especially in a market where almost everybody leases or rents their cars. Is very, car ownership is so low in Massachusetts. But anyways, long story short, there are ways that it helps lower income people while giving a mechanism to the municipality to make sure they go after folks that might have a little bit more. So because if you look at the collection rates on those personal property values, sometimes people who have a lot more seem to miss a lot of their payments. Without me without me giving anything away, I think I've been as clear as I can be.
Yeah. But this has potential to be interesting on Tuesday. Right. The conversation around this. I'd have a lot of questions. How much revenue are we actually talking about here? It's not like I have a lot of questions because look, the federal funding bomb is coming, and I don't know if
it's coming.
Yeah, and I just don't know if this is the time to be exempting revenue. But however, I'm also for tax relief for working people, that are down the economic scale. So, I'd need to learn a lot more about it.
I think Senator Eldridge had a study done on this issue a couple of years ago. I think it costs the state more to collect the excise tax on people whose income is under $50,000 than they bring in. It's one of those. Part of the reason you do have some thoughtful people in our government, really you do. Senator Eldridge being a person that I think is, by the way, he's hated on the left and the right, so I like him right away. Like him right away. But one of the things that he's talked about is that we should get rid of collections that cost more to collect than they do bring in, right? And so one of the, I brought this up many times. The city of Worcester spends more money on collecting parking than they're getting from parking. It is what it is. It costs more to collect it than they're actually getting. And to me, you should just then get rid of it, because if you can't figure that out, it's a useless situation. The DCU Center, Councilor Russell brought this up this year. The DCU Center's revenues for I think 7 out of 10 years or something, it was some stretch, we were paying more to the management company to manage than we were getting back in revenue from the building. Now they turned it around, so you have to give them credit. It is a different team over there than it was before. So they've turned it around and they're bringing in more revenue. At least they did in 2024, and they were projected to bring in more in 2025. So all credit to them. But when you see those kind of differences, it's like, hey, we're spending more to get less. It doesn't make any. It's underwater.
Stupid. Yeah. I mean, and it's not like they went out and found somebody and hired them. They went out and got the largest company in the country that specializes in venue management. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe don't do that and just hire a person to build a team. But that would take thought in trying to maximize what few revenue assets the city has. And of course, we saw a few weeks ago that there's a majority of the council would appear is opposed to anything that like filling market gaps, for example, market failures, like at the Lincoln Plaza area,
the grocery store, right?
Yeah, and grocery stores. We can't do that because the city manager would have to put on his butcher's uniform, although he doesn't have to put on a ticket taker uniform and go to Polo Park or DCU Center.
Hey, so by the way, really quick, another thing that we didn't talk about, I forgot about this until I went there. Green Hill Park Farm. There's a farm at Green Hill Park that's owned by the city. It's a farm. There's ducks and there's llamas and there's pigs.
Yeah, but is the point to generate revenue, or is it a
no? But I'm just saying that we're not. It is what it is. The city manager should be putting on his farmer's outfit too, because
get some overalls. Yeah, so I don't want to go through all that again. We spent a long time on that.
We did.
But,
there's a lot of ducks, by the way. A lot of cool looking ducks. I don't know if you know what one of the my favorite kind of duck is called a hooded merganser. If anybody wants to look that up on Google, you'll get yourself a feast for the eyes. Hooded merganser.
I don't know, Gino. If I'd have to look into it. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a local kickback on marijuana sales, or if it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I can tell you that the city still doesn't get enough for what the Cannabis Commission gets in space at Union Station. But that's a much.
But they sound like well. In their defense,
by the way, did you see that?
In defense of that deal, though, I do agree, but they did sign a 20-year lease. So
they did. Everything you're saying is right. People made mistakes, but still, what they're paying is even the food hub thing pays more than them, which is wild. It's like, what is going on here?
Another commercial. Oh, well, it's a nonprofit, but another thing that is aimed at commercial entities. It's customers of commercial entities that is supported by the city.
It's wild.
So yeah, I don't know, but I don't know if there's a local kickback on the marijuana tax.
Yeah,
I'm really not sure.
I can
last thing I wanted to mention,
places in Worcester. There's a ton of them.
Well, I mean, sometimes you want to make the colors look interesting.
You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a cannabis place in Worcester.
There's not really that many.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Anyway, I was just the other day. I was swinging a dead cat, and I hit like 3 of them.
More package stores, or how many package stores compared to?
There's way more package stores than cannabis places. We are one of the. Well, we're not. I mean, there's some small towns in Massachusetts that have more per capita, but we got a ton of package stores in Worcester and some of them just doesn't. And then a bunch of grocery stores that have liquor licenses. Yeah. So you can get booze wherever you want.
That kind of leads into something we didn't put on the agenda, but I wanted to mention. So it was a 40 petitions to the state for the state ballot have been approved by the Attorney General. Now, this only kicks off the portion where they need to go collect the signatures, and then I forget the number is. It's something astronomical. So most of them are not going to make the ballot, and some of them were actually duplicates. So the petitioners submitted, 1, 2, or 3 different versions of their thing, in the event that one was
found
rejected. Illegal. They took out they take out something and submit it a second time. In most of those cases, they were both or all 3 were found to be eligible. So it's now up to them which one they're going to kind of like signatures.
Yeah,
right?
They'll consolidate. Right?
But there was on marijuana. There was a few related to marijuana, and the effort in they were all, I think, by the same petitioner. But interestingly, they want to make it $100 fine if you're an adult and you have between, they want to limit public, they want to limit private possession to 1 ounce, which I think is what it is at now, right?
I think it's at 3. I thought it was at 3.
Oh, is it 3? Okay. So they want to limit to 1 ounce, and then between 1 and 2 ounces, they want to make it civil infraction, $100 fine.
Where's Sean? Sean knows this stuff right off the top of his head.
And then for minors or people under 21, they want to make it. I think it's up to 1 ounce. They want to make it $100 fine, civil infraction, right? Cool. With that, however, the other part of it is they want to eliminate retail sales. They want to shut all these places down.
Which there's no way that passes. None. No way.
No.
No.
So they want to limit the punishment for possession, but they want to close all the retail stores. And the only caveat they really give to these people, again, to open one of these stores is a significant investment.
Yeah. Definitely the people who have opened them have a ton of capital behind them most of the time.
Right. And the only kind of caveat to them is, they would have to be provided an expedited process to file for a license to sell medical. And then there was some other things in there. It wanted to limit the potency of medical. So your doctor thinks you should have this, but that's above the limit of the law. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
So none of that stuff will happen. I just brought that up because we were just talking about
it does create panic, and I always wonder about timing and things, but what does it matter, Tom? They still haven't voted about the audit.
All right.
So it doesn't matter what we do anyways. They got to do whatever they want.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that she should have gone back again with a petition for a constitutional amendment to amend the state constitution to allow for the audit.
Sure. And it probably would have won.
Right. I don't know why she didn't.
3%, right? So,
the cynic in me says, does she think that this fight is doing more for her than actually winning the fight?
Oh, I am firmly convinced that we will have a disputed primary in the Democratic gubernatorial campaign next year, and it'll be a very prominent elected official against one Maura Healey. So,
I will believe that when I see it.
It'll be remember when we did start off this episode with a little bit about the MassDems, right? And so there is definitely a divide among the older Dems and the younger Dems. And I would say Diana DiGoslio she is the apple of the eye of the younger.
Isn't she a Republican?
Huh? No,
I think she's a Republican.
No, she's a Democrat. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. She was, denied committee assignments and all that kind of stuff.
Oh no, you're right. She's a Democrat.
Yeah, she's a Democrat. She was a Democratic state rep, state senator, and that's why. So well, this goes back to how people handle stuff. We have a bad Speaker of the House. It is what it is. It does really terrible.
Oh, we always had a bad Speaker of the House.
But this particular guy did stuff to this lady, and everything that you've seen in her career has been about this. She is coming for them left and right, and she's right. She's 100% right. They do shady stuff at the state house level.
Listen,
that they should all be ashamed.
I'm focused on city stuff primarily.
Yeah.
And yes, but city government's completely broken.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is vastly overshadowed by how broken the house is.
Yes, Worcester is utopia compared to the state.
Yeah, especially the House. The Senate has actually made some strides in getting better.
Yeah.
But the House is a disaster. Yeah. It is the power of one.
Which, by the way, you can point to leadership. So I would say Karen Spilka has done a pretty good job as the Senate president. I think that there's some consensus building there, and she's done a lot across and there has, by the way, even though it's still a supermajority, the Republicans had made some gains in the state Senate. And she did some stuff where she made it harder for them to say that she's not working with them, because she gave them committee assignments and she put them into different positions. Which again, if you remember, oh my goodness, Bob Travellini. So long time ago, Senate president, so the 90s, Bob Travellini. He used to do that. He used to take Republican state senators and he would put them in cherry-picked spots And then it really it kept their group at about 8 senators for like a long time. And he was really good at that. And so then they had some gains and there's some stuff like that. So you do have to work with people that have different ideas and views. And again, the Republican Party in Massachusetts is not remotely close to the National Republican Party.
No,
It is not
no.
the same thing. And so you can't, it's hard to,
I mean, it kind of is, but the people that'll get elected aren't.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I actually did download their platform. I haven't read it yet. I was gonna do that one next week.
Oh, that's going to be infuriating.
But it's not as long as the Democratic one. It's like it's a shorter document.
So like, why bother? We're going to get 16 people elected.
Yeah. But there is some. But they put these platforms out a year in advance because remember next year is a gubernatorial election in the state as well as the midterms for the national stuff, and there's a much significant higher turnout than compared to the local elections that we have in this year, right? So 10% for the prelim,
and that's why we should just vote on even number of years for municipal office. But that's
100%. The municipal elections. By the way, it would save the city money.
Yep.
Tom, because
although we might kill Nico because he'd have to. It would be 2 separate elections on the same day. They wouldn't be all on one ballot.
So it would be multiple ballots. It would be hard to organize. But I will say this, to Nico's credit, again. By the way, everybody here who has heard this thing about Tom and I just hammering the city all the time, Nico Vangelina is a great city clerk. He's done awesome. a tremendous job in like cleaning up records and a lot of good stuff. There's some things I disagree with him about, but I want to say that at least in the election department, dude hits home runs every single year because we have split precincts, which is was a terrible decision by the school committee and the city council. Just really bad situation, and he has to manage these split precincts, which means like I was at the YMCA. Give you a great example. I'm at the YMCA, and there are people who live across the street from the YMCA who don't vote at the YMCA. They have to go to Meade Street and vote at the water department. Now, why did that happen? It happened during redistricting, and that version of the council just made a really poor set of maps and changed and split several of the precincts.
The election commission does that.
Yeah, and because of the school committee lawsuit, which was a lawsuit that led to all this stuff. So instead of just coming together and making the decision, hey, we're just going to match them to the city council districts and just have them be exactly the same, we ended up with what we ended up with, which is part of the reason why the folks who were participating in the District E election for school committee had a hard time finding whether they could vote or not, right? Because they don't know exactly where, because it is weird. There's parts of, I think it's Everard Street. Is it Everard Street? There's a street where the district ends in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And if
they have to draw the lines. Yeah.
You can vote, and in the other house you can't vote, and it's just like, okay, that doesn't make any sense at all.
You know what they could do though is it like, for example, in the city of Boston, they have 13 councilors, which is standard when you have a mayoral system. Elected mayor, who is the executive of the city, and if you went to 9 district councilors and 4 at-large councilors, rather than more at large, because the only municipality in Massachusetts, and only city in Massachusetts, 59 cities, one has more at-large councilors than district councilors. That's this stupid city. But if you went to like a 9 and 3, a 9 and 4 to get to 13, and then you had 9 school committee members, you could just make all the school committees districts, and then you could have equal districts. Imagine by the way, because the council's districts and the school committee districts could be the same if you had the same number of district councilors.
And by the way, for those of you who have talked, and I've seen some of the comments on some of our articles about why the voter turnout is so low. Little preview of another piece that I'm working on for Tom. If you go back to 1987, when they added the popular mayor's election, right? So the first one being Jordan Levy. When they made that and they added that, since then, every year participation pretty much went down until the year after Trump was elected the first time. It went up a little bit, and then it went down. until the municipal election alone was the first time it had gone up in a long time. That wasn't a Trump year. So it's very interesting how the way that these things work. But if you compare the percentage of participation during municipal elections to the state and federal elections that are on the even numbered years, it doesn't compare. Worcester hits the 40th percentile on a pretty semi-regular basis, depending on who's the candidates at the federal level for that year. So, right now, if we hit 20%, you and I would be like high-fiving, right? So if we hit 25%, we're talking a massive change, maybe, potentially.
If we hit 25, if we hit 25% turnout, and I don't think we will, but if we hit 25% turnout in the municipal election in November, there's going to be some changes.
There'll be some changes, some big changes. We're 25%. So, and just fun fact, Joe Petty, our current mayor, has never been elected mayor with more than 11,000 votes. He's gotten more than 11,000 at-large councilor votes in a couple of elections, but the most votes he's ever gotten as mayor was like 10-6, 10-7. And so there hasn't been a person who's crossed the 12,000 vote mark since Tim Murray in 2001. And then if you go, and then you have to go back farther to get into the 15,000 and the 17,000s and the 20,000s. But so this low participation rate for the mayoral race has been in existence. Connie Luke's one of the years she won with 7,500 votes and crushed it.
Yeah, and to get back to the ballot, petitions that were approved, there is one. There's a few that are interesting, but one that I'm just absolutely in love with, and said this. I've kind of I wouldn't say I've advocated for this, but I've discussed this for years. Yeah. Why do we have a primary system, whether it's here, where, look, a Republican is not going to win Jim McGovern's seat. It's not going to happen. The math just doesn't math, okay? Or if you live in Mississippi, why are you voting when it comes to the general election and you're voting for a Republican, which is the vast majority of the people that vote, in many of those districts, and a Democrat who's going to get 18% and get killed by 50 points? Why do we do this? And what this petition is suggesting is that we do not have party primaries, that the primary vote is all the candidates are on the ballot.
Yeah.
And the top 2 vote getters go to the general election, regardless of party or anything else. So, for example, if somebody wanted to run to the left or to the center, for that matter, against Jim McGovern, and they were a Democrat, they could get on the general election ballot, and we actually have a contest where one of 2 candidates, either candidate might win. Where we have a situation now where, of course, McGovern's a wagon, and I think rightfully so. And he's going to be on the general election ballot, and he's going to be up against a Republican, and he's going to destroy that Republican. It's stupid.
Yeah, I think
we are letting these 2 corporate garbage entities control who we're allowed to vote for. It's stupid. So I love this petition. I hope they go get the signatures. I love it, love it, love it.
But by the way, Jim McGovern's so dominant that I think it was 5 elections in a row now, or it's either 5 or 6 in a row. At least 5 elections in a row. The amount of blank ballots, like people who decided not to fill in the race, beat the challenger for Jim McGovern.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I forget his name now. Jeffrey Sosa.
Yes.
He got some votes.
Yeah, he got 33%, I think and that was the highest in 20 years against Jim. Yeah. 33%.
So I mean, and it's not a comment on that individual, like that candidate specifically, but it's just like he was never going to win. No matter what he did. He could run the best campaign in human history with unlimited money. He was not going to make McGovern.
And to be honest with you, I thought he was a great profile because he was a gay Republican who ran daycare centers and was a successful business person. So he had a bunch of things in his favor to be a competitive Republican in Massachusetts, and he got crushed. He got absolutely.
Well, I mean, look, the nutty wing of the Republicans in this state aren't going to vote for a gay guy, doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That
And
that
that's
is
I mean
true.
that's not all Republicans by any means, but there's a
But
contingent.
that actually shows you something a little bit if you think about that, right? That means maybe the base didn't turn out for him, but he did get some moderate kind of middle of the ground conservative Democrats to vote for him, right? Or independents
Mm,
in
yeah,
Massachusetts,
I
right?
mean, I forget what the numbers are, but like it's more than half, at least in Worcester, because I just looked at those recently. More than half the voters in Worcester are unenrolled.
Unenrolled. Yeah, unenrolled. And so I mean I'm unenrolled. I've been unenrolled my whole life. I cannot find it in my heart to choose one of these two terrible choices. So I
And
just
although a close friend of mine is a player in the Massachusetts Green Party, Green Party and Massachusetts Green Party, Green Rainbow Party is compared to most other places, it's got its stuff together. But the Green Party as a whole, especially nationally, is such a goddamn mess. I'm not joining them.
can I say this, Tom? There is a registered party in Massachusetts that's called the Pizza Party. That's a real thing. That's
There
a real
is,
political
there
party.
is.
I have thought that if there is ever a day that I shall run for office, it shall be from the Pizza Party.
Yeah, but they're probably crazy.
And what do you mean? I'll take over. I'll go. There's how many members are there? 20. I'll just go take over. We'll change the platform to pepperoni, and I will dominate in all the elections. That's
And
your
and
that's your,
uh
your
and
future
lastly
mayor checking in.
and lastly that petition also sets a 3% any. So right now, I think it's 5% you have to get. It might be 3, but either way, it only for governor. You have to run a candidate for governor that gets at least 3%, and then you get a ballot line.
That's right. So
Uh,
the last primary, the Maura Healey election, I know this because I worked for the elections division, had in the primary, we had a Democratic ballot, we had a Republican ballot, we had an independent ballot, libertarian ballot, and a green rainbow ballot. So it was 4 ballots that we had to, give out depending on what the person's party. And the thing is that if you were like if you're unenrolled, you could come in and pick whichever ballot you wanted.
right.
But if you had registered on one of the parties, you were stuck with that ballot. So you couldn't goes to what you're talking about, having an open primary. Maybe someone's a registered Republican, but they want to vote for the medium Democrat, right? So then they prefer to go there, but they can't because they're stuck in this hole. I think it would encourage participation. I think you would get more people involved.
So that petition. So anyway, so that this would be any statewide ballot, any statewide race that a party had a candidate, they got 3% would then get a ballot line. That means you're fixed on the ballot. There's no you have to go get a billion signatures to get on the ballot. You're just on the ballot. The next, your party's candidates are on the ballot the next election.
Which is cool.
But yeah, the all-in-one primary is I love it. And then if we just do approval voting, which is you ranked choice people need to stop. Ranked choice is trash, for the record. Trash.
It didn't work in Alaska, folks.
I don't understand why people. I mean, is it better than what we have now? Yeah, but moderately.
But so
the mathematicians will tell you that the highest voter satisfaction comes from star voting. I think that people going into the ballot box and looking at their ballot and having 5 stars next to each other, next to every candidate, I think people will lose their minds. So although it is probably the best system that at least of the popular systems now that people are advocating for,
you give 5 stars or 0.
Yeah, you can. So it's actually ranked. Well, not ranked. It's what do they call it? Either way, you can you can. It's not just a yes or no. It's you can give it a rank. But I'm for approval, which is basically what we do for city council at large, because you can pick 6, right? So the theory behind approval voting is you select everyone that is acceptable that's running, and whoever gets the most votes, right? Even though you're voting for more, you can vote for one candidate. You can vote for every candidate. It's like not voting, but in theory, you could vote for every candidate. But the thinking is you select all of the candidates which you could live with, and then whoever gets the most, most individual votes, just like for city council at large, they win. That's that would be inertia for me. Parties shouldn't control who allows to get on the ballot. That's stupid. We should decide who we want to deal with between September and November
Yeah.
I think the runoff is important. I think that it's important that after the primary there are 2 candidates on the ballot that are running. Get them all the press time and all of that, so people can make an informed decision.
Right. What would be interesting is if you did have this open primary system and 2 people got through that didn't declare what party they were be a part of, and then the Democrats and the Republicans could endorse one or the other. They'd be like, "Oh, we like this one better, or we like that one better." You know what I mean?
They probably wouldn't, because they're awful.
No, they wouldn't be, because they want to keep the control, because they want the system to remain how it is. People hate change; they're scared of change. But again, I just like the fact that there's at least an opportunity to have a conversation around this, because I do think, again, I think our state, and I think most of our country, a lot of the people in power thrive off of people being uneducated and unable to access voting systems. They might be able to register to vote, they might be able to get their IDs and stuff, but the voting process in and of itself is unattractive because it's made to be. And I think that, that's why I volunteer. So, people ask me all the time, "John, why do you volunteer for the elections? Are you making a difference?" Yeah, because when you come to see me at the voting place, I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see you. I encourage you. I tell you thank you for voting. I make sure you get your sticker and all that other stuff, right? Because I want people. And then I put reels out there, and I encourage people to come to the polling locations. And then I also encourage the polling workers, which, by the way, the vast majority of the polling workers are retired people who are or people that are longtime super voters who that they want to be involved, and that's how it is. But they're all have been there for 10 and 20 and 30 and 40 years, and they just don't get a lot of encouragement. People are mad at them, and so I try to do that. And I figure if I do that, if I bring Happy Bright John there, that maybe it'll get some people to come down to vote, because our options are.
What is this ballot? Why isn't Trump on the ballot for city council at large?
I get that a lot. I get that a lot. We had a guy come in and say, "I just want to vote for Mo Bergman," and I said, "Okay, go ahead." Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, if you want to fill out just one, go right on ahead. So there you go, Councilor Bergman. Just so you know, you had a voter in 10-6. You had at least one vote in 10-6. And someone was very adamant that you were the only person they wanted to vote for. And so I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think these conversations are good to have. It's good to have these things going on. I think I'm excited about this election, at least that it's an interesting ballot, right? Like, there's some new faces on there. I know one of the district races doesn't have anything really exciting about it, but I mean, there is at least some change that we're going to see. No matter what, we're going to have a new District 3 councilor, no matter what, right? No matter what, we're going to have a new District 1 councilor, no matter what. And so it is interesting, at least, that we have some races out there that are going to be interesting and different. And so I like it. I like to compare. I like to be able to compare between people and talk about it and stuff. The at-large race, I mean, if it holds now, we have 2 brand new at-larges, right? If we would lose an incumbent, we lose 2 incumbents because Councilor Nguyen is not running again. So I would say that's interesting. At least it's interesting.
Yeah. So that's that. I guess it is time for John's favorite part of the show.
Well, Tom, before we get to your favorite part of the show, and worldwide, the #1 performing section of the This Week in Worcester podcast is Tom's favorite things. That's a fact. That's a national fact. You can ask, even President Trump comes on the side of that. He's watching right now and waiting for you to talk about your favorite things. But before we get that,
don't say that. I try not to curse.
Feature earlier today for those of you out there that like the world of sports. And if you notice under my thing, it says grumpy old man, but it was supposed to be grumpy old fan. Sorry, I got it wrong. But I did a little Patriots preview, and I decided that I will take public accountability on the This Week in Worcester podcast every week if I'm wrong. And so I made a prediction that the Patriots would win 23-20, and I was wrong. That did not happen. They lost 20-13, right? I think that's what it was. So Tom. You got fans. It's the Tom's favorite thing hour. That's right. Yes. But of course, related to football, which I know, Tom, that you just like are just adamant and you love watching all the things related to football. We had another breaking piece of news that was a This Week in Worcester exclusive. Mr. Manny Alvarado is the new spokesperson for Holy Cross football.
New MC for game day.
MC for the games inside the stadium. So get tickets. They're like $10 or something. September
Congrats to
13th.
Manny.
Fit and field. Go see Manny and yell at him from the thing. You can heckle him. I give you 100% approval to heckle Manny. Heckle away. But I wanted to ask a football related question. Now we've talked about this in the past. Who's your favorite Patriot? Blah 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 blah. I have a better angle. Tom, who is your favorite enemy of the Patriots?
I'm not even a Patriots fan.
I know. That's what makes it a better question for you.
I mean, clearly the Dolphins.
Huh?
Clearly the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, not just a team. Pick a person. Like who's a person? I have a person in mind. Here, I'll go, and then it'll give you some juice to think about.
Yeah.
So my favorite enemy in the history of the Patriots was Rex Ryan, who was the head coach at for the Jets for a period of time.
I just don't want to put my foot in my mouth.
That guy was great. He was a great bad guy for the Patriots because he used to just talk smack. Oh, and then I just realized you just made a joke that was related to Rex Ryan. Nice one, Tom. It went right over my head.
Who was that? It was a playoff game. Somebody got sat for the first series.
Yeah. Edelman.
No, what was it? Was it Edelman or was it the other white guy before him that played the same position?
Maybe it was Welker.
I think it was Welker.
Yeah. But Rex Ryan, he was big kind of heavyset guy, and he just used to talk smack. And so, and then there was a little bit of time, it was very short, where they kind of won a couple games in the series, right? Because remember, there was a time when the Patriots just won every single game against the Jets. And actually, to be honest with you, Dolphin fans have a lot to be able to say against the Patriots because they consistently win a game, usually at home, but they would win often, and they have a bunch of like crazy upsets, like the stupid one where Gronk was on the kickback.
I was gonna say Gronk was all done. He was washed.
That was it was funny. As a Patriots fan, I remember watching that game and being like, that's funny right there. That's funny. But I always want to think about who's like the best enemy. Because today was Pete Carroll with the Raiders, and I intentionally did not watch the game. I listened to it on the radio because I wanted my radio listening to inform my articles for you. I want to be a totally grumpy old fan and give you old man takes on all the sports the rest of the time. So who's your favorite enemy of the Patriots? Which would be on your side, realistically.
Oh, Patriots fans are really not going to like me for this. Really not going to like me. My favorite Patriot and individual human being enemy, Bernard Pollard. If you know, you know.
For those of you who don't know, Bernard Pollard took out Tom Brady's knee in the first
opening day. Yeah, that was
after the year they lost in the Super Bowl after being undefeated.
They won 11. Would they win 11 games and still missed the playoffs with that kid from USC who then went to another team, and we all saw that he was garbage.
Yeah. He was propped up by the magic of Belichick, who, by the way, won his first game as a college coach this weekend against a team of high school kids. It was wonderful.
Shawnee said Dan Marino. Dan Marino is much too big to just be classified. He's just bigger than life. He's just you can't just put him as the enemy of the Patriots. He's way bigger than that.
Plus, the Patriots of the 80s are the weirdest franchise of all time because they were only good in the middle. And then at both the beginning and the end of the 80s, they were rancid hot trash. So they were not competitive with the great Dan Marino. Dan Marino just used to poop on them all the time. Although in 1986, in the great Squish the Fish year, they did beat him in the playoffs and then got destroyed by the Bears.
Cheated. And who was the only team to beat the Bears that year? Remember, the Bears went to the playoffs 15-1.
Yeah, it was Miami. Miami holding on to that undefeated season. I do like so I've always been the kind of an open-minded fan. I like good games that are like make me entertained. So I don't I don't believe that Joe Flacco actually a couple times he shredded the Patriots. Like I always believe they like I want to see a good game, and if the other team wins, I mean, I give them credit. Like, hey, they played a better game. But there's the New England sports fan that's like, they cheated or something. It's like, oh, okay, well, I watched Tom Brady beg for roughing the passer calls for the whole 20 years. I saw it. I'm watching the game too. I saw him turn to the ref and go, "Hey, where's the flag?" and get the flag. You know what I mean? So you got to take it both sides. You can't be mad on one and be cheering on the other and be like, "They did hit Brady." They would sometimes wave in Brady's general direction and he would get a flag. It was crazy. I was happy because we were winning, but yeah, Brady didn't need the extra 15 yards. He really did.
What was that? Is that 85 or 86? That Bears team that won. That was maybe one. I mean, that's the best team of the '80s, hands down, and one of the best teams ever. It was stupid.
Yeah, it was. It was. They fell apart immediately afterwards because Jim McMahon and cocaine. But they were.
Well, he was drunk anyway.
That team was amazing. That team, Walter Payton. You know what I mean? Yeah. By the way, Mike Ditka did one of the worst things ever by a coach in that Super Bowl, and is that he didn't let Walter Payton run in that touchdown. He gave it to, if you remember, the great Refrigerator Perry, and that pretty much ended. If you ever watch the Walter Payton story, it's an amazing documentary. You go check it out. I think it's up on YouTube now for free now. But it kind of ended Walter Payton's love for football. So one of the great players, coolest players of all time, felt shafted by his own coach. So
one of my favorite pieces of video of all time is and he was absolutely bitter about it, but I don't care about that he was bitter about it. I care about what he said. Somewhere along the line, Montana was asked about, is Brady the best quarterback ever? And Montana went, "Are you kidding me? Do you know what Dan Marino would do to this league?" Because the throwing league now, rather than it was a much more running league then.
Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite piece of ever.
It's not
everybody's goat at the time was Montana, and he was like,
yeah. I don't know that he's wrong. I think at the beginning of Brady's career, it was much more physical. Fridge was in the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royale.
That's a great call. That's a great call.
WrestleMania 2, baby. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. I don't know if anybody. How does Sean feel about the return of AJ Lee? I don't know if he's feeling. Well, so in modern wrestling now, apparently, if instead of building up wrestlers to be cool without the belt, now they just give them whatever they want. And so CM Punk, they're having him lose all the time without it doesn't get. But they brought his girlfriend back, his wife. I'm sorry, people. He's married to her in real life. But anyways, it was kind of stupid.
No, I couldn't be less interested in like wrestling. I watched it when I was a kid, but I did just recently watch. You can find it on YouTube. I don't know what I forget what his real name is, but the guy who played Cactus Jack and Mankind and all that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And Mark Holloway, the Undertaker. There's video of them watching that very infamous Hell in a Cell ring. They're rewatching it 25 years later, talking about it. Well, it's compelling as hell.
Yes.
Because I mean, there's two separate times they thought the dude had died.
The announcers back then made you believe that they were dead. Like it was out. Jim Ross was the best. I was a child, teenager at the time watching that. I thought he was dead. I was like, because he said, "Well, God is my witness. He's broken in half."
So, at one point, if you've never seen it, I mean, it's craziness. It's not even that long, but it's craziness. They went way off the deep end. So the Hell in the Cell is the cell is capped at the top, and they're on top of the cage at one point, and Undertaker throws Mankind off onto a table it's the ring, 8 feet of cage, throws him onto a table from on top of the cage. And in this, the sit down, he goes, I'm standing there trying not to break character, looking down at you going, "Oh, please move, please move, please move." Like he thought he might be dead. Yeah, it was really cool. Like them talking about it was really cool.
Yeah, they don't do so much of that stuff anymore. The really crazy. I mean, they do cover themselves in blood a lot, but it's it just yeah, it was cool. Oh
Mick
yeah,
Foley, yeah, Jesus,
yeah,
I think his real name's Jack something, but
yeah, no, it's Mick Foley.
I think that's a stage name.
That's a stage name? Oh, I don't know.
I think so. I may be wrong. It doesn't matter. But
Jack,
yeah,
though,
it's you know, I'm definitely not a wrestling fan, but this thing was cool. Like them watching the tape of it. It was cool.
By the way, of the 3 characters that he played on a regular basis, I liked Dude Love the best of the 3. If anybody, that's a deep cut.
That dude's a funny guy. That dude's a funny guy. Like he's a weird, funny guy.
I'm sure I hope we retained our audience. I mean, how are you feeling about the wrestling talk, everybody?
Yeah, I don't care at all about wrestling. But this was cool. Like them talking about, you know, it's very well known match they had, and I mean, you know, they did that at one point. They were fighting on top of the ring, and the cage gave out, so dude fell through the cage, and that wasn't supposed to happen.
That was not
scheduled. Or it was. I think actually they were talking about it was, but they didn't think it would work.
Right.
And they definitely didn't think it was going to work the first time he did the choke slam thing. And didn't think it was going to work the first time. They talk about like the noise that they heard when it gave way. And it was very cool.
Wait, what did we get here? I missed. Do we miss a comment from Lynn?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking. Don't worry about it. So yeah, if you're looking for something off the trail that you know, are off the beaten path per se, that I found it super interesting. And like I said, wrestling is not my thing. So I believe that's all.
Is it?
Dan Marino's the greatest quarterback ever. And we will do this.
People will love that. The Tom Brady people are going to come for you now.
Watch the man throw the football. It is unlike anything you've ever seen if you're a fan of quarterbacks.
The Dan Marino flick?
Dude, the thing came out. It was like from his ear to his chin, and the thing was out. It was unbelievable.
It was weird. Like this.
It was unbelievable.
I don't know how he did it. Vintage flat big Japan death matches from the late night. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it was interesting, like them talking about it, like what they felt in the moment, and the things that weren't supposed to happen or whatever. I found it
cool. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
He was fine back in the day too.
Who's coming to city
council? It's in the name. It's in the name.
By the way, who's coming to city council with me on Tuesday? Who's coming? Public safety at 5. Anybody?
What's the point of going to that?
I'm going there to do the shot spotter contract starts on that day, so that's on the agenda. So I'm gonna go talk. I'm gonna go make sure that I get my talking points in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, last time that Councilor King tried to even bring that up, it was shot down. So, anyway, even talking about it was shot down. That is.
But I'm gonna mention that that there should be a moratorium on jobs after working on negotiated contracts.
All right, we're at our limit. We're 3 minutes over. Thank you all for joining us. We will try to screw it up less next week. Until then, have a great week. Whatever it is.